Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey everyone, Militiaman and Crew here. It's Thursday night. We got some great news for you. I hope you guys are chilling out, sitting back, had a good day. Let's see what happens with what the Iraqi Dinar news has to say to us. And today, for instance, the Central Bank of Iraq has their final day of financial inclusion for the week, which sounds to be like it was a success. The central bank governor, Ali Alak, he's confirmed off the sidelines of the celebration that the steps achieved in financial inclusion that were accomplished today are accelerating and can close the gap. So that I think means is that Iraq has had problems in the past getting citizens into the banks, getting them reacclimatized, if you will, because they've had some serious problems in the past with corruption, lack of trust. And they've been working on that for quite a few years. I think the financial inclusion plan for the World Bank and the Bank of International Settlements and the IMF have been ongoing for at least 5 years. So this isn't anything new, but being more successful, they've had good success of getting citizens involved, opening bank accounts, and that sort of thing. It says, though, that the central bank has become at the forefront of global central banks. That's a pretty powerful statement from the Central Bank of Iraq. You realize that al-Awlak has, been the central bank governor for the second term now, but he also had a chairmanship, the board with the AMF, with the board of directors. I believe he was deputy chairman. And why is that important? It's because, well, he's back doing a job with Iraq, and he's also dealing with financial inclusion that was pretty much offered by the Arab Monetary Fund, or at least involved. And then he goes on to say that they've been working on a project called the Riyadh Bank, and their expectation is that that's going to be coming soon, or is a very important project that is in advanced stages by establishing this bank. And what's it going to be? It's going to be effectively, they view, or he views, it's going to be a qualitative leap in supporting and financing of small and medium enterprises. Well, that's big, because if you know some economics, even if it's just basic, that small and medium enterprises are huge when it comes to being a backbone for private sector and market economies. And what is it going to be doing? It's going to help with those providing jobs, opportunities for all segments of society. So that finished up today. It's pretty big. Basically, that's global central banks being in the forefront with them. I think is a very powerful statement that he had to say today. There's the financial advisor today to the Prime Minister. Financial Affairs, Mohammed Saleh, explains that the dangers of the exchange rate fluctuations in the event that demands for floating the dinar are met. So this is a topic that's been out there, and I'll give some context, is that we've had an article that came about fixed exchange rates, okay, pegged exchange rates. Anyway, I think that the headline of that second one is, it's a fixed system, so, but anyway, the bottom line is they're talking about a new exchange rate. And why is that important? It's important because Saleh is an advisor. They're talking about a fixed exchange rate, or new exchange rate, or floating exchange rate. Basically what they're saying is that they're talking about it for one reason, is because a new exchange rate is coming. So the point I'm getting to is that it's going to be a fixed or a pegged, or look, I'm being generic because there's a lot of names for exchange rate regimes. Okay, there's a lot of them. And so where does Iraq fall in those? Well, it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of A, are they going to float the currency? B, are they going to peg it to a currency or a basket of currencies and fix it? Okay. Some of the goods and bads, they talk about that today here. And so the article in our forum and patreon.com/ and crew, you can find this article specifically. His financial advisor, the dollar exchange rate in the parallel market is gradually approaching the official one. It's a long read. It's a good one, but just realize that inside this article, they're talking about a new exchange rate, and resulting with the flotation will be, which would be undoubtedly accompanied by a prior wave of inflationary expectations. Little tongue twister, you guys, but bottom line is there's goods and bad, but the bottom line, at the end of the day, the one that is going to tell you about a fixed system is likely where Iraq is today, in a fixed system, and what, so to speak, right? And where they're going to be going again is probably likely to be in a fixed system. And the reason being is because they are going into this tripartite budget to rebuild the country. When you rebuild the country, you're going to have pricing for the products that you're going to bring into town, which is materials, services, etc. They're going to need a stable exchange rate. Free floating, a stable exchange rate, you have market conditions that are potentially risky, because the Central Bank of Iraq, for instance, has a really large reserves, and they don't want to hurt those reserves, okay? And by doing so, if you leave it to market forces, to people that are in the marketplace that don't have the central bank's reserve potential, which is ultimately 10 times more than most people on average, this is what Soleil's estimate is, it could be risky. So basically how I attribute his conversation is, look, we're going to have a new exchange rate, but we're probably not going to do it this way because of these reasons. So keep that in mind. But at the very end of the day, it's they do talk about during the 2023, the monetary policy did not leave a fixed exchange rate system, but rather moved from one fixed exchange rate to another fixed exchange rate. I think what they're saying there, and why they would say that early on with the first article, was about 3 days ago in comparison to today's, and that's why I put it together in the Patreon for you guys to take a peek at, is because a fixed exchange rate, to some degree, trust me, you can define them in small increments, a fixed, a managed, all these little different bits and pieces are talking about the ability for the central bank to intervene to protect or defend the currency is part of the process. It's more risky when it's afloat. It's not as risky when it's pegged to a basket or to a specific strong foreign currency. And like the dollar, for instance, it's just one of those things. So take a look, come on in. Parliamentary planning budget change will include schedules only and will not change the exchange rate for oil. So the parliamentary planning budget is talking about not changing the exchange rate. Simple as this. It's not their job. They're not going to. It's a kind of a misleading article. Bottom line is the exchange rate is the central bank governor's job, and that's where it sits with me. So that article is just not what we think it is. But keep in mind, though, the schedules are going to have that amendment taken into consideration, and that is the government has passed. No, the HOR has passed in the tripartite budget the ability for the government to make changes to schedules and do amendments. They've done that. So that's where I believe the confusion or the specifics between Soleil talking about that the HOR doesn't need to get the schedules, and that was a little bit of a dispute just recently. So again, they passed the tripartite budget. It gives the executive authority to the government to do what? Make changes and amend the budget outside of the HOR. So interesting stuff. complex a little bit, but yeah, but it's still really interesting. It says, here's another one. It says the Iraqi prime minister vows to diversify the national economy. We're going to start seeing words that are talking about implementation, activation, and expectations. Okay, those words are buzzwords, and that's patterns that we can see, and we can pick up on those patterns, and it's not hard to see. It's just that if you're not paying attention to consistent data like we get from Samson on a regular basis in our Patreon forum daily, you might not pick up on these things, but we do, and we see that it's a theme. And that's how I kind of put my storyline, tonight, my news line, if you will, together. Is because you start seeing these patterns, and you start seeing these themes that are spoken by the powers that be that are going to do all these changes in Iraq and around the world and in the region. Okay, so there's expectations. Is there expectations from the World Bank? Yeah, they have expectations. Is there expectations from the IMF? Yeah, that's probably why Taif Sami and Al-Alaq sent a letter to the IMF. And what else? What would that be for? It wouldn't be for happy birthday to the IMF. It's got to be something along the lines of exchange rates, and most likely in Iraq's case, gearing towards going to a market economy would have to probably have that acceptance to IMF Article 8 compliance. So that's what we would assume that would have been just recently in the past in my videos. So anyway, here we go. It says diversify the national economy. Basically, they're talking about we have no choice to support the industry, agriculture, trade, and tourism to achieve the transition from country dependent on oil revenues to a diversified economy. Have we not been talking about that? Going from a rentier or oil-based economy to a non-oil-based economy? Exactly that. It says we have targeted industry as a major goal in economic reform, as Iraq is an industrial country as much as it is an oil and agriculture country. And you saw the deals with Turkey with water that they're working on, right? You see the steel mills being built, or have been already. They actually have stuff that suggests that they have already started the process of rehabbing these factories and stuff post 2003. A lot of those factories were just destroyed, or they were taken offline. So anyway, al-Sudani's been making it quite clear that Iraq is to diversify her economy and will require a stable exchange rate. Having large fluctuations in exchange rates create price risk when contracts are involved. And we all know that the contracts we're talking about have been from the United States. We're talking about Turkey. We're talking about all kinds of countries around the world. Not Jordan, all the 6 countries right around Iraq on all the borders, Iran, Syria, everywhere, Kuwait. So keep that in mind. Rebuilding a country is not going to happen anytime soon with 1310. It's just probably not going to happen. So obviously they've got something else in mind, because they've already said they've launched the projects. Therefore, there's contracts involved. What the rates are with the contracts, that's private information. That's kind of like non-disclosure agreement stuff. In other words, they can write a contract and say, if you leak out any information about the context of this contract, it's null and void. So we got to be careful about where you are with what they're doing behind the scenes, because obviously some of the largest corporations in the world are moving in. Total's one of them. You've got General Dynamics, you've got McKesson, you've got all these different energies, GE, Vernova. You've got all these different companies, big companies, military companies, building tanks, all kinds of things, right? So you realize that there's some big contracts, and those people, and those under those circumstances, they know how to keep things quiet until the right time. And rightfully so. So anyway, if you add in the trade agreements recently that we just talked about was with Iran and Iraq, what were they discussing? They were discussing trade agreements. Well, who was involved with that? We know that it was the World Customs Organization. Well, what's the implications for that? It's very, very promising stuff, because the fact remains is the World Customs Agency works in facilitating trade agreements. Why do they do that? It's because they work in conjunction with the WTO. So those things are really fascinating. And remember, the ICE-CUTA system, all in line. WTO, WCO, ICE-CUTA system, All of them have connections. They even go so far as to be involved with the UN, UNCTAD. So do your research, pay attention to that stuff, and know that obviously the focus here is implementation, activation, and expectations. Those are the things that we're seeing in the news today, and it's all coming from Iraq. It's coming from the likes of the World Customs Organization, etc. So those things are really pretty powerful. Here's another economist today saying he's explaining the feasibility of the development road project in the short and medium term for Iraq. The gentleman's name is Muhammad Al-Fakri, and he's explaining this whole thing. But one of the special statements he said today was the development road will make Iraq in the short and medium term a sustainable commercial, industrial, logistical center at the regional and global levels, and will open the door to a wide flow of foreign and local capital to invest in infrastructure development projects in Iraq. Think about the money, you guys, to build a country, 1,200 build a country, let alone just the development road itself. All the industrial cities, all the commercial buildings, all of the cities, residential complexes, infrastructure. It's massive. It's so far too expensive. It would just won't happen at 1310. They have to have a real effective exchange rate. And by the way, if they have a real effective exchange rate, like Al-Sudani said, that the dinar is going to be stronger than the dollar, the parallel market goes away. It just does right out the gate. And obviously, the stronger the currency is, the cheaper it is for Iraq to do what they need to do. It's a no-brainer. It's that simple. Al-Sudani points out some conflicts on the path to development. The project belongs to Iraq, not to any party or official. So they want to make that straight. What are they doing? They basically have the legal people involved. They've got the ability to, what they're trying to do is finalize designs for the development road project. So they're finalizing things. It says the Supreme Committee of the Strategic Development Road Project has basically, in the beginning of their meeting today, according to the statement, that the path to development is the project of the Iraqi state. So it's specifically to the state, with all its interests and the economic growth aspirations of our people, and cannot be attributed to any specific party, any official, any ministry, or sectoral entity, stressing Iraq's openness to the participation of neighboring brotherly and friendly countries, just like they did. The recent four-way memorandum of understanding signed in the regard will serve a basis for conforming work on the Iraqi project in detail. So that's what was it? Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and who else was it? Maybe it was Turkey. Yeah, it was Turkey and Iraq. So that was a big deal. Basically, he comes on and says that the Prime Minister also directed the Ministry of Transport to finalize the approval of the designs related to the road project and the governance that are their concern and or with their departments. So they're talking about implementation, activation, and finalization, and with what? Great expectations of things to come. So look, basically Al-Sudani directed the Ministry of Minerals to complete their vision regarding the shape of the industrial cities to be established on both sides of the road. So they're at that stage now where it's not about we're going to do it next week, next month. They're talking about we need everything organized and we're moving forward with this. We're finalizing things. He goes on to say they approved the directive to a form of committees that says that the customs, standardization, and quality control, border crossings, and other relevant sectoral authorities to resolve the details and procedures of transport operations that will take place towards entering Iraq's territory or that will exit Iraq using the development road, to fix the customs tariff and commercial and administrative requirements related to this activity. So it's like showtime for these guys. We're working on this. The Prime Minister directed the legal department in the General Secretariat of the Council of Ministers, the legal advisor of the department in the Prime Minister's office, to develop an integrated legal vision for project management and to establish the legal aspects related to its operation. So Al-Sudani's been working on this for quite some time. He's been in office for about a year and 8 months or so. Do the math. I could be off a couple months, but the bottom line, this is their 7th meeting, so they haven't just started this process. 7th meeting is telling to me that finalizing designs, locations, lines of travel, etc. Their focus is in on customs, the standardization, the quality, the control of the border crossings, and other issues getting resolved for when transportation comes in and goes out of the country. Having the tax, custom tariffs, along with the commercial and administrative requirements to support the effort to become a reality is on the table. They have the legal team and side of things, at least, right, that are at play to make what? To make their reality happen. It's actually in writing. They talk about reality, and it is becoming a reality. And Al-Sudani is working for that action plan, if you will. Says Sudani's government ministry signed agreements with Turkey 2 weeks ago to prepare an action plan for each file. There you go. Finalize, to prepare, and to get ready for action. It's awesome. So he's been basically giving these folks at these committees a period of 2 weeks from today or yesterday. And this is actually going more towards the water file. And that water file came a little bit later. A lot of these other contracts and all these other things about the development road project started a little bit prior to this. So anyway, keep that in mind. I don't think that is a big problem for any one of us. It shouldn't be, because the bottom line is they need to jumpstart things prior to. They didn't start any of the oil into Turkey yet. There's probably a reason for that. Today's the 2nd. We'll see. We haven't seen anything in writing. It was the expectations, one of those words again, was for that to be started already as of yesterday. So we'll see how that turns out. We might see something tonight or tomorrow. I don't know. But it says in the importance of their visit, Turkey and Al-Sudani, which represented a turning point in relations between the two countries, and the necessity of following up on the implementation of agreements. Again, they're using the same buzzwords. And memorandums of understanding to achieve the highest interest for Iraq. He's directed that the ministries of water resources, agriculture, and municipalities subject the projects required in the water sector in aspects related to dam projects and river linings, as well as projects regarding water management, desalination, and treatment, based on the agreements concluded. So they had agreements that were done with the Turkish side in this regard. He points out that Iraq will witness a revolution of projects to invest in water wealth, and which will be reflected in the overall agricultural reality. So basically, once the water starts flowing, they're going to have the ability to construct, build, have enough for housing, have enough for the industrial cities, and to produce crops, to be self-sufficient, and to actually probably export, which is what they're talking about. So that's really, really powerful stuff. They go on to say, expecting the surprise results. It says the street, for instance, is in a position to support who? Al-Sudani. Basically, what's being said is Al-Sudani is just loved throughout the country, and he's showing everybody his true colors. So this article, come in and see it, expecting, quote, surprising results, end quote. Al-Taiban reveals the street's position on the Sudanese. In brief, it says there's a popular satisfaction between the performance of the Sudanese government, and it is expected that the surprising results will be achieved in its favor in upcoming elections. And there's more to that. But the bottom line is that it doesn't matter it appears that it doesn't matter if he's with Sadr or if he's with the coordination framework or any other blocks. Al-Sudani has, in particular, the streets' ability to keep him on top in these elections. If, in my opinion, if Al-Sudani in his present state, if he's accepted with all blocks and he brings forth the purchasing power to the citizens, I have a feeling that Al-Sudani is going to be a very, very popular man, even more so than he already is. So Transport begins contracting with an international company on the development path. So here we have contractors specifically are doing what? They're finalizing contracts with international consulting company regarding the implementation of the development road project after it was authorized by the Council of Ministers to contract as an exception to the instructions for implementing government contracts. So it looks like a company by the name of Oliver Wyman provides financial consulting services to the Iraqi government in the development road project with its three components: the port of Fao, railway, land roads, and noting also it provides assistance in choosing the economic model for the development road. Big stuff. The completion rates for the Port of Fao are basically have reached 92% for the 5 berths, 73% in the link in the highway, and 73% in the container yard. So they're busting it out. They're getting it done. They're not done. They're not going to stop. It's obviously if they've got to that level of completion at this stage of the game, they're moving forward. The port is obviously bringing in product because you've seen big monster ships coming in. It's good. Prime Minister and the American ambassador discussed the following up on the work of the committee to activate the strategic framework agreement. So they're following up to do what? Activate the strategic framework agreement. So during the meeting, bilateral relations in various fields and files were reviewed, discussed, and understandings and memorandums of understandings included in the Prime Minister's visit to the United States related to aspects of energy, trade, and other issues, and the follow-up of their implementation. So I just love the fact that they're talking about activation, implementation of what? Projects, all taking place under al-Sudani's watch, and they are really focusing in on these big players that are out there, these reforms that are taking place and being implemented now. Basically, they're talking about energy contracts, trade deals, water files. All of these things, basically, in my opinion, have a stamp of a time stamps on them. They need to get them done by a specific time. Al-Sudani has mentioned many times in the past that he's doing things by specific time frames. We just don't know exactly what those are. We don't have a crystal ball, and we bring in the news directly from them. What I'm reading to you, you guys can find in print, and you can go over it yourself. So I think it's fascinating stuff. But here again, this is my last bit, is that the World Bank's expectation that Iraq will achieve a high growth rate are positive expectations. Several factors that will contribute to it. So there we have it. Expectations, all those buzzwords that I was talking about have come to play in all of this data that I'm giving you. It says that the economic affairs expert Raad Taij confirmed the World Bank's expectation that Iraq will achieve a high growth rate, and there are positive expectations, indicating there are several factors that will contribute to Iraq's achieving this rank. What else? They go on and say that the expectation that Iraqi's economy will achieve a growth rate, it's expected to reach 6%, and it's at the forefront. In other words, at the forefront of the Arab countries. So Iraq is going to lead the Arab countries with their GDP expectations of 6% in the coming period. It says one of the most important factors that will contribute to Iraq being at the forefront of the Arab countries and help in its high rate of GDP is the rise in oil prices to approximately $90 and daily production rate of about 5 million barrels in light of international reserves, approximately $112 billion in reserves in light of digital transformation, which they've been working on, digitizing the banks, financial inclusion, which all the population has been getting bank accounts and working to that end to get their national cards. Those are some of those things that I'm adding in here. And also having advanced electronic payment systems compared to the countries of the region. So in other words, they're in the forefront. Like I started off, they're getting notoriety, global notoriety by other central banks. Al-Alaq talked about that in the financial inclusion aspect, right? So basically, financial sustainability of all generations working to diversify sources of national income, getting rid of rentierism, which is the oil aspect, going to non-oil. reviving the productive sectors of the Iraqi economy, which is your industrial sectors and your commercial and your agricultural and your tourism, and benefiting all of this, benefiting what? The Iraq Fund for Development and expanding its role. The Iraq Fund for Development is probably tapping into the Iraqi 2 account, which is, by the way, at the Federal Reserve Bank in the United States of America. That's my understanding. So anyway, last thing, World Bank has expectations of their own, just as Al Sudani does. It's not unlike the citizens as well, who also have them. Check that out. The World Bank's expectations of the growth of Iraq's GDP being 6%, it's very promising, and will gain the attention of investors around the world. It's going to be obvious. I mean, just think about the attention that Vietnam got when they were just like leading the pack. Obviously, they were getting attention globally, and they still are. And they're still also getting attention by companies like SAP, just like Iraq is, just like the Timonis. They're getting the attention of global banks and global entities and businesses for a purpose, because emerging markets is going to be where the money's being made. New technologies are going to be manifesting out of these countries, and we're watching it happen. In our news cycles, you're seeing that stuff happen. What's not going to happen is that they're going to take Iraq into the international world at 1,310 IQD to $1 US to rebuild a country. I just can't fathom how in the world that they could ever do that. Okay? Anyway, thank you for being with me on this evening. It's awesome. I think everybody should be excited, because the fact remains is that now we're talking about activation, implementation, expectations, all good, all high. It's awesome. So hey, thank you very much for being with me. If you like the content, hit that subscribe button, and please, if you'd like to help this content be part of what we do, all that work, all those components of 24/7 behind the scenes stuff, please do so. We'd appreciate it. Zelle, Venmo, PayPal. Thank you very much, you guys. Have a great evening. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.